Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we are going to do a Perfumers portfolio video on one of the greatest perfumers to have ever lived. And I've been holding this video in my back pocket for a long time. The reason that I'm pulling it out today is that this will be the final video before the top 100 countdown. I'm so excited to knock that out. The list is ready to go. I'm going to present the list. I'm going to do the video tomorrow, and whenever we hit 1,000 subscribers, whether it's tomorrow or Monday, then I will drop the video. But so this will be the final video, and I wanted to make, the 1,000 subscriber celebration more than just one day. And I wanted to do this special video I've been hanging on to for a long time because it is very important. It's a man that deserves the utmost credit. He deserves the utmost respect for what he did in the perfume industry, but also the way that he passed the craft down to the next generation. He didn't greedily hang on to his secrets. He passed it down, and there's an entire tree of perfumers that were created because of him, basically, because of his teaching and knowledge and his his openness to pass that down to the next generation. And of course, the man we're talking about is Edmond Roudnitska, who is widely considered the greatest perfumer of the 20th century. Definitely the most influential. I'll tell you a couple stories about Roudnitska before we get into it. We are going to do scent of the day and all that good stuff. But there's a story about Mr. Roudnitska that said that one day he got his tax bill, and he was very upset about the amount of taxes that the French government was charging him. So he got in touch with the authorities, and he said, if you guys charge me more than 10% taxes, I'm going to leave the country. And he was such a idolized figure. Perfumery in France is like, bow down to the masters. And they said, yes, absolutely, we will accommodate your 10% request. So he never paid more than 10% taxes because of that. Could you imagine somebody today who's not named, I don't know, Elon Musk or Warren Buffett doing something like that? It would be unheard of. There's no way they would be able to accommodate that nowadays. But that's what sort of an icon he was back then in France. And he's also the first perfumer that turned the perfumer's profession into something more than, something that boys or girls who failed at other things fell into. Because in the old days, it was seen as, oh, you can't go be a doctor, you can't go be a lawyer because you flunked class, you can't go be an engineer, whatever your family wanted you to be, go be a perfumer if you were in that Grasse area of France. It was something you kind of like fell into. It wasn't a profession that was sought after back then. They made what was called penny fragrances, where they knocked off the good fragrances for a penny. That's how they practiced their craft back in the day. It wasn't something where the perfumer was a celebrity. Edmond Roudnitska changed that. He saw himself as an icon. He saw himself as a celebrity, someone to be revered. He saw himself as an artist. Many perfumers back then, they didn't see themselves as artists. In fact, and they made fun of Mr. Roudnitska for that exact fact, for the fact that he claimed that he was an artist, and that this was a craft, and that, he should be celebrated. And the other thing that he did, we'll get to the perfumes, of course, here in a little bit, but the other thing that he did that is just as important as his contribution to the fragrances that he created themselves. I only have 4 fragrances from him that I'm going to talk about today. He didn't do a whole bunch of fragrances. He probably, if you take a perfumer like Alberto Morillas, who's done thousands of fragrances versus Roudnitska's, whatever it is, 20 fragrances, it's amazing how the fragrance industry has changed over the years. Now, that's not blaming Alberto Morillas, but that just shows the difference in time and how the industry has changed. I'll tell you a quick story, something that, I saw today that just really made me go, oh my God. I saw that Clive Christian put out a fragrance called Amber Wood. So literally when we make fun of some of these fragrances and say, oh, it smells like amber woods, it smells like harsh synthetic woody materials, this niche house, which I feel like a lot of niche houses are now kind of lost at sea. They don't know what to do. They don't have a strategy. They just throw something against the wall, charge $500, and if a couple people buy it, it's worth it to them because the markup is so huge between the amount it costs to produce and the $500 fee that they're charging for that fragrance. And, you know, to call something Amber Woods and make it a niche fragrance, it's really like you're getting the niche pricing, but you're not getting the good quality. You're not getting the originality. You're missing out on all the stuff that's important, but they're charging you an arm and a leg for it. And I feel a lot of companies are in that boat right now. Amouage, Creed, definitely Creed. You know, even the more successful ones like Roja. I would consider Roja's brand a success from a marketing standpoint. He's an absolute genius, no matter what you think of the man. And at least he does love the classics. I'll give him that. So, you know, fragrance brands like, for example, Boadicea, the Victorious. I looked at their stuff the other day just to see. I don't own a single bottle. But they have 50 releases a year, it feels like. So they're just pumping out, you know, massive amounts of quantity and hoping that someone, you know, almost like a sucker goes in and goes, oh, wow, I've got $700 in my pocket today. Let's buy the newest Boadicea, not knowing there's going to be a new one next month. That's not how things were back then. There were years between releases. You'll see in the video what we talk about today. There are years between releases. They worked on these for a long time. It wasn't something that they just put out and flankered to death back then. These were something that you were expected to go home and wear and make a part of who you were. And if you didn't like the fragrance on the first spray, you know, you didn't give up on it on 10 seconds. You wore it all day and you made your decision after letting it become one with you and who you are. And, you know, that art is lost, but that was the times that Mr. Roudnitska grew up in. That was the times where he was, you know, one of the head honchos. And so before we get into his bio, I'm going to read you a little bit about him. We're going to talk about the perfumes, but I want to do scent of the day, of course, because it is very an important topic. Scent of the day for me gives me a chance to talk about fragrances I'm wearing, and this channel is about my journey. This is about documenting my journey and the things that I like and discover, and I'm very opinionated, so I'll give you my opinion. And if that helps you, you know, uncover new things, hopefully, if that helps you put stuff on the to sniff list, to buy list, that kind of stuff, that's what this is all about. And, you know, sampling is important, uncovering new fragrances is important, and you get to kind of see that journey right along with me. That's why I think that's important. But before we do scent of the day, I want to talk about something that came up when we talk about Edmond Roudnitska. It wasn't just his fragrances that were so important. It was his contribution to sharing his craft with the next generation. And he took a young man under his wing by the name of Pierre Bourdon. You may have heard of old Pierre Bourdon, one of my favorite perfumers of all time. He created one of my favorite fragrances of all time, good old Kouros. And this will be in the top 10. I will tell you that tomorrow. When I do this is the top 100 countdown, I'm going to rank everything. Kouros will be in the top 10. Absolutely. This is a top 10 fragrance for me. And again, that list is going to be my personal top 10 that I love to wear. Not the top 10 fragrances as far as what I think are just technical masterpieces, but my personal top 10 that I enjoy wearing. This is up there. And Pierre Bourdon learned his craft from Mr. Roudnitska. And then you could even trace the family tree of Edmond Roudnitska to Pierre Bourdon's disciples. So people like Julian Rasquinet. There's a fantastic book out on the House of Creed called The Ghost Perfumer. And it talks about Pierre Bourdon's relationship with Olivier Creed and how Pierre Bourdon passed some of that knowledge down to the next generation. Julian Rasquinet, Jean-Christophe Herault, who made Aventus. I can smell it through I love Royal Oud. And this is a 500 ml flacon, so you can tell I love this fragrance. And, you know, it's an important, in someone's legacy, when you look at who they were as a person, who they were as a man, this is an important part for me anyways, because it shows that he's not being greedy with the material. He's not saying, these are my formulas. I did this. I want the credit. Obviously, he deserves the credit. That's why I'm doing this video, because, you know, people like Edmond Roudnitska, Pierre Bourdon, even Julien Rasquinet for the longest time, Creed hid his involvement because they wanted it to seem like Olivier Creed created these fragrances, which he's not a perfumer. We know that. And so they hid it from us. Well, now the truth is starting to come out. The truth always comes out. So for me, when you take someone like Pierre Bourdon, who trained Julien Rasquinet and said, I held nothing back. I taught him all the tricks of the trade. I told him everything I know. You know, that sort of apprenticeship nowadays can't just be learned in a book. You know, that is a very important skill to pass down to the next generation. And Edmond Roudnitska did that with Pierre Bourdon, who created some of my favorites, like Live Jazz. This is one of my favorite summer fragrances to wear. Koros, I mean, so many amazing fragrances. Green Irish Tweed, the list goes on. And that contribution to the fragrance world is because of Mr. Roudnitska. And you could directly trace the lineage, the perfumer's tree, from one perfumer to the next. So I wanted to mention that because it's a very important part of Mr. Roudnitska's legacy to me. He deserves the, you know, he deserves the recognition. And everyone, a lot of perfumers, if you ask them who is the best perfumer to have ever lived, a lot of people say it's Edmond Roudnitska. So let me talk about Scent of the Day, because I want to talk about this. If you have been following my channel for a while, you know that I did a first impression on a little fragrance called Boss Spirit, which I really fell for. I loved its very herbal green. This has like 5, 6, 7 green notes just bang right in your face, and there's zero sweetness to it. It's ultra sharp, ultra bitter, almost like you're smelling like, you know, a little bit of like a cannabis bud. You know, it's this mugwort, tarragon, galbanum, peppermint, and then there's a beautiful lavender, but it's the contrast with the leather in the base with the sandalwood, stuff like that, that makes it so beautiful and so late 80s, early 90s. Well, this is a fragrance that I'm wearing today, and it's called Duke by Atkinson's. Let me turn the lighting down a little bit. It's called Duke by Atkinson's. You can see the little guy right there at the top. He's a hologram. He's jumping for joy. And Atkinson's Duke, this is a 50 ml bottle. This came out in the early 90s, 1990, I want to say 1992. So this came out in the late 80s, Boss Spirit. And these two definitely share similarities. I forgot to mention this whenever I talked about Boss Spirit, but Atkinson's is classified as a Chiffre, but it has some fougere qualities. There's this lavender geranium combo, which really will give you that reminder of a fougere, but I don't think there's any tonka in the base. I don't think it goes to a true fougere, but it doesn't go to a true Chiffre fragrance either. The anise note, so basically what you get when you smell Duke is you get a big reminder of Boss Spirit, because it opens up herbal, very green, very aromatic, very sharp, zero sweetness. It has a lot of the same notes as Boss Spirit. It has basil, rosemary, artemisia, which is the mugwort note I talked about earlier. It has tobacco in the mid, which Boss Spirit doesn't have a tobacco note listed, but you almost get like a tobacco vibe. This one does have tobacco listed, and it has leather in the base, just like Boss Spirit. It has loads of oak moss. And then the twist here is that this has a beautiful spruce note. Spruce is a note that, you know, I've kind of been loving on lately. It's in Oriental Velours by Les Indemodables. I would love a full bottle of Oriental Velours. I love that fragrance. Probably the best spruce note I've ever smelled in perfumery is in that Oriental Velours. And here, it also has a lovely note of spruce, but it's contrasted with these ultra late 80s, early 90s vibe, unsweet, masculine, right towards the end of that era coming, you know, right before the aquatic wave kind of washed everything away. And in Duke, you get a little bit of that late 80s vibe, even though it was issued in the early 90s. I love this fragrance. It's so, it's so masculine and comforting, and there's zero sweetness, which I love about it, but it's very sharp. That anise is very sharp and in your face, almost like vintage Azaro Porom has that sharp anise. But it's also created with these uber green notes like Boss Spirit. So these two are really two peas in a pod. Duke by Atkinson's, Boss Spirit. You could, if you like one, odds are you probably will like the other. But if you like my taste and you trust my nose, this is one you have to put on the list. This is one no one talks about, and it's funny because it should get more talk. I actually heard, there was a channel that I heard talk about it. Fragrance Matt talked about this a month or two ago, 3 months ago maybe. But it is it's a discontinued fragrance, of course. And I think I got this from Le Parfum a couple years back. If you can find a bottle, I would say scoop this up if you have tastes like mine. Okay, so that just had to be talked about real quick because loving that fragrance today. Wore it today for the first time in a while. And that sometimes that happens when you have a big collection. You put something away and then you come back to it and it really jumps out to you. And this just really jumped out to me today. If you like unsweet, you know, if you like unsweet fragrances and you like that really green, old school masculine, this is fantastic. This is absolutely beautiful as a spring fragrance. Okay, so let's talk about some of the fragrances from Edmond Roudnitska. The first one is the one that everyone loves, and I don't, because I always like to go against the grain, not purposely saying, oh, you guys like it, I hate it. No, I just naturally, for whatever reason, this didn't appeal to me as much. I didn't find the love and joy in it. Didn't move me like some of his other creations. Everyone you know, if you like fragrances that are maybe a little bit more citrus and a little cleaner, they don't have that dirty edge to it. There is supposedly some cumin in here. I don't get any cumin, but this is Eau Sauvage. If you ask a perfumer, what is the greatest creation of the 20th century in their eyes, a lot of them will say Eau Sauvage. They'll say Eau Sauvage or Féminité du Bois. And Eau Sauvage is this heavy citrus, fresh. This is a very fresh fragrance because it uses bergamot, lemon, lavender. It smells very 1960s to me. It smells very, you know, Steve McQueen used to wear this fragrance, that kind of stuff. It smells very old school Hollywood, that kind of vibe, you know. There is supposedly orris root, rose, patchouli, carnation, sandalwood, jasmine, coriander, amber, oak moss, musk, and vetiver. My bottle, by the way, for those of you into the batch code stuff like I am, is 3M01, and which probably means that it's either a 2013 bottle or a 2003 bottle. I think it's a 2003 bottle because I had the box. I still have the box. It's up in the attic. And it has the short ingredient list on it. So I don't think it's a 2013. I think it's a 2003 bottle. And it was completely wrapped. It was cellophane wrapped when I got it. So it was never opened, never sprayed. Everything was in perfect condition. And I can see women love this fragrance on a man because women love to smell a man that just smells clean. And this gives this very clean, citrusy, fresh, for high heat, this is perfect. But for whatever reason, whenever I wear it, it's a little boring to me. It doesn't excite me. It's almost like I just want to dump the bottle on my head and move on to the next fragrance kind of thing. You know, it's that vibe for me for whatever reason. Maybe one day I'll learn to love this fragrance like a lot of other people. But for now, this is one of the weaker Edmond Roudnitska fragrances. I'm glad I have a 200 ml. I can just, you know, go to town with it on warm days. And you can see it does say Parfums Christian Dior, not Dior, so you know it is an older bottle. But for whatever reason, it just never moved me. Now, the next fragrance that I'm going to show you is a feminine targeted fragrance that he made in 1972. So Eau Sauvage was 66. This is 72. This is a floral Chypre fragrance. And this is a vintage bottle of Diorella. So you can see they call this bottle the Houndstooth bottle. Look at the bottom of the sticker there. So old school. Keep from heat or flame. I love it. So some people say that Diorella is Eau Sauvage perfected, okay? That's what some people say. And I get what they're saying because it does have that, you know, bergamot, lemon, basil, Chypre thing going on with oak moss. But he added a couple notes that, you know, if you like a little bit more depth, not as citrusy, stuff like that, this adds this peach note, this fruity peach with melon. And it's interesting because the melon in this, every time I smell this, I get this vibe of, you know, 90s aquatics, which Pierre Bourdon was very big into bringing to the forefront with the fragrances like Green Irish Tweed and Cool Water. Now, this smells nothing like a 90s aquatic, but that melon note just always strikes me as something that I like to think about the progression of one perfumer to the next. And, you know, I totally see Pierre Bourdon sitting somewhere and just analyzing this fragrance and thinking, how can I bring that freshness, that melon freshness, which he used many a times. I think he used that melon note in fragrances like Davidoff's, what's it called? Good Life by Davidoff, stuff like that for men. There's a melon note that, for whatever reason, that melon note just seems like it was so ahead of its time. Now, Luca Turin and Tina Sanchez said that this smells like an Asian fish market sometimes because of that mixture of the melon and the florals, and I don't get that at all. I think this is a beautiful Chypre fragrance. I think if you are into, you know, vintage Chypres like I am, this is one you have to smell. There's also a honeysuckle note here, which is absolutely beautiful. You don't smell that note very often. And then the base, though, is oak moss, musk, patchouli, and vetiver. Very masculine base for these old women's fragrances from the 70s. Sometimes these old women fragrances from the 70s smell more masculine than even the modern masculine fragrances. So don't be scared to check out Diorella. Even the modern formulation I hear is quite good. But you can see I have a vintage bottle that only has a little bit left, so I'm babying it. But whenever I wear this, it always feels like I'm wearing something special. It feels like a special occasion, that kind of thing, you know. So this is Diorella. Now, the final two are my favorite Edmond Roudnitska fragrances of all time. And the first one, I actually have done a comparison video on my channel. One of my subscribers sent me a decant from an older Eau de Cologne version of this. This is the Parfum de Toilette version, which Rochas stopped using that verbiage, I think, in the early 90s sometime. But this is Rochas Femme. This is top 3 chiffre for me. Top 3 chiffre. I would say my favorite chiffres are this, Diaghilev, and Mitsuko. And this is up there with my 3 favorites. And Rochas Femme, it is, you know, there's supposedly cumin in Eau Sauvage. Like I said, there's definitely cumin in Rochas Femme. This actually came out in the mid-40s, right either after World War II ended or right before World War II ended, this came out. And this is such a beautiful composition. It's complex. Even though, see, one thing I should mention about Edmond Roudnitska that I did not say is that he was a believer in keeping his compositions short. Meaning he didn't want to have 100, 200 notes. He wanted to have 10 or 15 notes because he believed that the nose can only smell so much, right? And if you overwhelm it, you're only going to be able to pick out 2, 3 notes or accords anyways. Even if you're a trained perfumer, maybe you can pick out, you know, 5, 6. Maybe you can pick out double what the average person can pick out. But most people aren't going to smell apricot, bergamot, peach, plum, rosewood, cinnamon, lemon, clove, iris, jazz, you know, that kind of stuff. And so he's a believer in keeping it very short and concise and letting the simplicity of the formula speak for itself. This is supposedly a historically very simple composition. It smells very complex and very rich. It smells very rich. Rich is a great word for this because, I mean, look at the color of the juice. It has that syrupy, rich thickness with the cinnamon. The plum note in here is to die for. And then you have the florals, the ylang-ylang, one of the best ylang-ylang notes you'll smell. Jasmine, carnation, rose, iris. He was a big fan of using clove as well. So he loved cumin and he loved clove. He thought that it gave it this added depth. And then the base, of course, is lovely benzoin, vanilla, but there's oak moss, there's leather, patchouli, amber, musk. Just, if you're a fan of complex fragrances, if you like your fragrances to be complex, if you like them to change throughout the day so they don't stay stagnant, you know, if you don't like that, like Perfumum Roma fragrances are known to be very linear. This is the exact opposite of that. This is very complex, changes all the time, not expensive nowadays. You can pick up a bottle for like $25 or something, and you're getting one of the best fragrances ever created. Forget the fact that it says Rochas Femme. This is completely unisex. This would smell amazing on a woman, amazing on a man nowadays. The reformulated version was done in 1989 by Olivier Cresp, but I've smelled both versions, and I can tell you that I do have a comparison video on my channel if you go back through the history if you're interested in learning more of an in-depth review on the two. But either fragrance, whether you get the one pre-89 or post-89, absolutely amazing. I don't think you can go wrong with this. They've kept it... They've reformulated it very well over the years. And Rochas Femme is, if it wasn't for this next fragrance, this would be my favorite Edmond Roudnitska fragrance. But there is one other that just captured my heart, stole my heart. And we're going to talk about versions again, because you are on my channel and that is important to me. So this is Eau de Hermes. Now, Eau de Hermes is, here I'll show you the short ingredient list on the bottom of the bottle so you know it is a vintage because it has a short ingredient list right there. That's it. That's how they used to do it in the old days. Oh, you want to know what it contains? It contains alcohol, water, and fragrance. But Eau de Hermes, to me, is Edmond Roudnitska's masterpiece. And again, this whole thing we do of this is better than this or that's better than that, this is all subjective. This is like picking a favorite color. So if I say that, oh, I was just looking here, it looks like my bottle is chipped. I might have to decant this and get rid of this bottle. That's too sad. Yeah. Shame. Anyways, beautiful bottle. There's the chip in my bottle, unfortunately. You can see it right there. Guess it'll hold up, but it's on both sides. It's on the front and the back, so I'll have to decant this. I don't want to lose the juice. But this fragrance right here is Edmond Roudnitska's masterpiece to me, personally. And the reason it's his masterpiece is a couple of things. That mixture of the dirty cumin with the lavender, the leather. There is this birch note in here. It's dirty and clean. It's citrusy and it's fiery. You can wear it in the winter because of that dirtiness. And you can also wear it in the, I can wear this in the summer, personally. This fragrance to me is all year round. And to show how important this fragrance is, if you go pay attention to Jean-Claude Alena's creations, he was the in-house perfumer for Hermes. And even before he became the in-house perfumer for Hermes, Jean-Claude Alena made fragrances like Cartier's Declaration. And Declaration has a big nod, a big hat tip to Eau de Hermes, that dirty cumin, but it's transparent. You know, it's ethereal, but it's a little bit dirty. I was saying in a video a couple days ago when I was talking about, you know, real life imitating fragrances, or fragrances imitating real life, how there's some dirtiness to real life. Not everything is roses. You have a tough time. Sometimes bad things happen. And I was talking about how a fragrance can touch on all of those different things. It can touch on the fact that there's beauty underneath it all, but it can be a little bit dirty, right? It is, you know, it can be a little bit challenging, but you can find the beauty in that in the challenging aspects, that kind of thing. This fragrance has it all. And someone commented that, you know, not all fragrances that are masterpieces have to have it all. Some can be all dirty. Some can be all beautiful, right? And I agree with that. But when a fragrance has it all, when it has a little bit of so many different facets, this keeps my interest. I never get bored of wearing this. I see future fragrances being, you know, being based off of this or inspired by this. And this particular version is what they call the pewter cap version, if it had a cap. Now, this is the flacon, obviously, but if it had a cap, it would correspond to a point in time where it was the pewter cap version. And then they made the copper cap, and then they made the, I want to say it was like a clear cap. And then they made the modern with the black cap that looks like this. So I think the modern Eau de Hermes has a black cap like this. The one previously was clear, and then the one previous to that was copper. And then the original, which this one comes from, is the pewter cap version. You know, I'm a big fan of going for a specific version. And I can tell you that Rich Mitch has both. And he's told me that the pewter cap version that he has is his favorite. And so people that I trust, like Thomas, for example, from Early Greek, says that the copper cap is his favorite. So you have to go with what you like. But for me, the pewter cap is the one that I really love. And I'll tell you what, this is his masterpiece. This is his fragrance that for me, it just touches my soul because it's animalic, it's dirty. I love dirtiness in fragrances, but it's not done with, you know, Pierre Bourdon used civet, and Edmond Roudnitska used cumin, but they both got to the same point, right? They both reach the same destination in the fact that they're dirty but clean. This is like this contrast of dirty and clean. This is contrast of dirty and clean. Different interpretations, right? Maybe one artist is using one painting technique and another is using another, but they're both beautiful paintings. That's the way that I see these. And I also see that he learned from his master very well. And, you know, that is, that's really the sign of a great teacher, great artist, all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to make this video for a long time. I've been waiting to do the Edmond Roudnitska video because there's not a lot of fragrances to talk about, but he's such an icon. You know, he's such an important figure. He is, he's a legend. And then his son even started doing some perfume as well, which I've never smelled any of his son's work. But, so this will be the last regular video before the top 100 countdown. I'm very excited to get that knocked out. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll drop that video. And then tell me what you think about Edmond Roudnitska. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If there's some others from him I should target, let me know. I really appreciate the continued support, feedback, you know, liking and subscribing always helps. You know, I want people to find this channel organically that love perfume. That's my goal, is I want people to just be searching and randomly you come across me kind of thing. So the like and the subscriptions, I do think, help with the visibility on the algorithm. You know, whenever people are searching or when YouTube makes a recommendation or whatever it may be. So it is always appreciated, but I'm not here to become YouTube famous or monetize my channel. I do this as a hobby, as something that I love. You know, I'm actually a little bummed about my Eau de Hermes, the chip there. That's really, I don't remember that being there. I wonder if I dropped this a little bit or something when I was putting it away. Either way, I need to decant this so it can't lose this juice. It's too special. So thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting and all that good stuff. And I'll see you again next video with the top 100. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.